Hey, happy Money Making Monday. CJ Curry here, back with another NBA Prize Picks video for you folks. If you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed before, hit the subscribe button. Free for you guys to subscribe. Ring that bell. We just passed 30,000 subs in our recent video, so I want to say thank you to everybody who continues to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button and share these videos with a friend or a family member who's betting on some NBA player props tonight. Much appreciated. Go Birds, by the way. Yeah, Philadelphia Eagles fan. We pulled it out. Big game against the Detroit Lions, so pretty stoked that we were able to come away with the win on that one. But without further ado, let's slide over to the PrizePicks board and talk about today's NBA picks. I got a few of them lined up for you that look pretty decent. If you're not playing on PrizePicks yet and you still need to make your first deposit, use promo code CJ Curry, because when you do, they're going to give you $50 back for your first $5, whether you win or lose on that $5 over on PrizePicks. So link down in the description to PrizePicks promo codes, and you guys can use that code to get started. All right, starting with the first guy here, we're going to look at Miles Turner, and the one that caught my eye for big Miles Turner is the 27.5 fantasy score for more. This has been a number that he's done a good job of hitting the over on this season, and in previous matchups against the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's cleared 27.5 fantasy score on a regular basis. So to take a closer look at this, we're going to slide over to Outlier. Outlier is a fantastic player prop research tool. If you're not using Outlier yet and you want to try it for 7 days, totally risk-free, go down to the description of today's video, click the link that I've left for you down there, and get started with Outlier. But looking at the 27.5 player fantasy score over on PrizePicks. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, player fantasy score is basically comprised of things like points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals, and then you lose a point for a turnover. So definitely get familiar with the scoring. But basically, if you're an old school DFS player like on FanDuel or DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports, well, they use the same scoring system as FanDuel. So that's kind of important to know if you're going to be using player projection models, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But anyway, Turner at 27.5 fantasy score, 71% hit rate this season. Even the games when he's played alongside Giannis, he still maintains a pretty healthy 67% hit rate. So done a good job for the most part of going over his fantasy score. Now, playing on the road, he's actually done a really good job as well. He's on a 4-game hit streak now, playing away from Milwaukee. So he's gone over against Cleveland, Indiana, Toronto, and Dallas, to name a few of the teams. So 4 out of 5 hit rate when he plays away from his home floor. Now, speaking of head-to-heads, you can see that the games played against the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's got quite a few of them in his game logs. Now, a lot of these are going to come from when he was a member of the Indiana Pacers, but he continued that success against Jarrett Allen in his first game as a member of the Milwaukee Bucks with 29.2 fantasy score. But if we go back here, you can see that he's gone over in 8 out of his last 10 head-to-heads versus the Cavaliers. So defensively, they're not a team that really slows him down or stops him. He's currently hit in 6 straight games versus Cleveland, posting anywhere from 39.7 and 51.1 fantasy score to 29 and 31 fantasy score in some of these other games. So he's done a really good job, pretty consistent in terms of clearing his fantasy score number of 27.5. So now that we know that the hit rates are good, the matchup is something that he's succeeded in the past, let's take a look at some of these projections. And for the first projection, we're going to slide over here to RotoWire. RotoWire does a really good job with player prop research tools as well. They offer projections, which a lot of sites like Outlier don't have. And on top of that, they're going to show you some hit rates or game logs. So some of that historical and head-to-head matchup data will be included with RotoWire. And they're also going to compare to some other like sports books and DFS betting apps. So most of the projections for Miles Turner are going to be more, lean more. If you look at this RotoWire projection bar here, you can see that the bar is all the way over to the right, which is a good thing. That means lean more or take the over. So in this case, you can go over on his 5.5 rebounds, his 20.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I know that one was at 19.5. They bumped it up, but we're going to stick to the fantasy score. So let's pop open his player card here. You can see his RotoWire projection is 32.66. So very high fantasy score number. That's about 5.1 fantasy score higher than where he's currently sitting on PrizePicks at just 27.5. He's a guy who gets some blocks and steals. Hopefully he has plenty of those against the Cavaliers, because if he's getting his points, his rebounds, and sprinkling in some assists. A couple of blocks and steals could really go a long way for Miles Turner. So good projection on that one. Another projection model that I really like to use is this one. It's shot quality. Again, this is a paid projection model, but well worth the price of admission. Now, if you take a look at the fantasy score just to the left of my portrait, you can see he's at 31.89 projected fantasy. It's a pretty big number when you compare to just 27.5 right now on PrizePicks, more than 4 fantasy points higher. So good projection there. The last projection is going to be LineStar. LineStar a little bit on the lower side. They have them at 27.43. That's still close enough within the neighborhood, so to speak, of that 27.5 fantasy score number. So I'm okay with that projection. It's not going to push me off of Miles Turner going over his fantasy score. He's due for a pretty good game after a couple of stinkers in a row there. All right, pick number 2 is on the way. And for this one, we're talking about Ant-Man going up against the Dallas Mavericks. Anthony Edwards. A couple of different ways that you could play Anthony Edwards. I think the one that kind of caught my eye was the 32.5 points plus rebounds. I'm already seeing this number being offered at a higher number on FanDuel at 33.5 points plus rebounds. PrizePicks has kind of been playing with this number here in the wee early hours of the morning. I've seen it at 33.5 and then it goes back down to 32.5. So kind of going back and forth is PrizePicks, but I'm going to show you why I like the 32.5 if you can get it at that number. Taking a look at Anthony Edwards at 32.5 points and rebounds. This is something that he's done in 67% of the games that he's appeared in this season, which is good. 6 out of 9 hit rate, averaging right around 31.9 points plus rebounds per game. Now, you got to take one of these games out of here. This one against Indiana, only 3.1 minutes played due to injury. So if you go ahead and crank his minutes up to about 25 games where he's only played like 25 or more minutes, well, then his hit rates go up to 75%. So an even better hit rate when he plays at least 25 minutes, which he should play in this matchup against the Dallas Mavericks. Speaking of the matchup, let's take a look at the head-to-head or hit rates in this regard. 32.5 points plus rebounds is a number that he's gone over in 2 out of his last 3 meetings against the Mavericks, dropping 43 PR back on October the 29th, 2024. Follow that up with 34 points and rebounds on Christmas Day, 2024. And then most recently, January the 22nd, 21 points and 5 rebounds in that game. Not his best performance, but that's okay. He's still Anthony Edwards at the end of the day, and I feel pretty good about playing him over for the most part. Now, when he plays at home, he really shows out. Other than that game where he got injured against Indiana, he's posted 42 PR, 34 PR, and 34 PR this season. So definitely likes to put on a show for the Minnesota Timberwolves fans. So the fact that he's playing at home is something that I like about this prop. Tends to play better in front of the T-Wolves crowd. So in terms of matchup, the Mavericks overall giving up the 18th most points and the 27th most rebounds allowed to opposing teams. So nice matchup on paper. Gets a little bit more difficult if you're looking specifically at the shooting guard position, but you know, basketball is becoming kind of more and more positionless, so I'm not too worried about shooting guard, small forward, whatever you want to call Anthony Edwards. You know, a lot of times he can handle the ball as well, so kind of a guard, but nonetheless, looking really good here. So let's run some projections on Anthony Edwards. We're going to go back over to RotoWire for this one. And most of the Anthony Edwards props that you're going to see are going to be lean more, according to the RotoWire's PrizePicks projection tool. And again, if you want to try this RotoWire tool out, 15% discount code is for you down in the description of today's video. They have a really nice mobile app for iOS, so if you're an iPhone user, it works really well. I think they might have one for Android too, but just a really sleek and sophisticated application that they put together. Anyway, Anthony Edwards projected for more than 26.5 points, more than 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists, and more on the 32.5 points plus rebounds. So RotoWire's really loving some Ant-Man today. His projection is 34.48. That's almost 2 PR higher than where his line's currently sitting over on PrizePicks at 32.5. Moving on, let's go check out his projection on Fantasy Labs. Fantasy Labs also liking some Anthony Edwards. If you look at his points and rebounds projection, 36. Again, his line is 32.5. So a 36 points plus rebounds projection is really impressive. If you look at just the points, 29.9 of those 36 points plus rebounds are coming just from the points alone. So they expect him to score about 30 points. It's a pretty big number. And you could also go to his points prop if you just want to take the points at 26.5. Looks like a pretty nice number there. Moving on to shot qualities projections for Anthony Edwards. Again, they love some Ant-Man. 29.14 for the points. For the points plus rebounds, 35.3. So a little bit lower than Fantasy Labs, but still a very high number when you compare it to his line of just 32.5 over on PrizePicks. Let's see if LineStar has any projections for Anthony Edwards yet. They didn't have any earlier when I looked. They still don't, but that's okay. We've got enough projections, enough data behind this pick. So I'm going to take the over at 32.5 points plus rebounds for pick number 2. Pick number 3, big man, Jaylen Duren. Now the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers is who Jaylen Duren will be facing. I like the over on his 33.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, but the Detroit Pistons, is what I was trying to say, are dealing with some injuries themselves. Duren has already been ruled in for this game, so they expect him to play, and it's a very friendly matchup against Tony Bradley, who's been the starting center for the Indiana Pacers over the last couple of games. Not really worried about him slowing Duren down. Really, the only thing that slows Duren down usually is if the game turns into a blowout or if Duren gets into foul trouble. He's kind of foul prone, but if he's fouling Tony Bradley, something's really wrong. Bradley's not really an offensive threat. Not somebody who's going to put Jaylen Duren in foul trouble for the most part, so not too worried, generally speaking, about Duren in this matchup. But 33.5 points, rebounds, and assists looks like a number he could go over, especially if like Asar Thompson ends up sitting out. Cade Cunningham is kind of on the fence right now. I kind of expect him to play, but those are a couple of names to look out for. Tobias Harris is still out for Detroit. So basically what I'm saying is the Pistons are rather short-handed here lately, and Jaylen Duren has been taking advantage. Let's take a look at his game logs on Outlier. 64% hit rate at 33.5 points, rebounds, and assists this season. So nice job, averaging right around 33 PRA for the season. You can see some of these games. I mean, he just crushes it, right? 43 PRA, 45 PRA, 47. He's currently hitting in 4 straight games at 47, 41, 38, and 36, respectively. So just putting up monster numbers. Like I said, the only games where he doesn't really hit is if he gets in foul trouble and his minutes are limited. So if you wanted to kind of crank his minutes up, let's just say he has around his average for the season, which is around 29 minutes. Well, he's gone over in pretty much every game except for one when he plays at least 29 minutes. And the team that he failed to go over against was the Memphis Grizzlies, for what it's worth. So, yeah, Duren, when he's getting, we could even crank this down to about 20, let's say 21 minutes or more, right? Because 21 is a pretty safe number. 21 minutes or more, 88% hit rate, 7 for 8. So as long as he's out there and he's getting minutes, he's going to crush this prop. Points, the Indiana Pacers ranked 28th in points allowed overall. They ranked 27th in rebounds allowed overall and 8th in assists overall. Now, the assists we're not too worried about because Duren's not going to get a lot of assists. That's not how he gets to his PRA. He's going to mostly get his P and R, his points and rebounds. When it comes to the points, rebounds, and assists, that's what's going to make up a bulk of it. Now, against centers, the Indiana Pacers do give up a pretty generous amount of PRA. 14th in points allowed to big men, 23rd in rebounds allowed, and 20th in assists allowed. So good matchup on paper here for Jaylen Duren. Now, in previous games, he did fail to go over in 3 out of 4. So head-to-head speaking, hasn't had the greatest luck or greatest success, but these were games from last season, and Miles Turner's no longer there. So maybe his fortune can change going up against the likes of Tony Bradley and Isaiah Jackson. So Jaylen Duren looking pretty darn good here, despite the fact that he struggled a little bit against the Pacers in the past. But let's run those projections for Mr. Duren. And of course, we're going to go back over here to RotoWire. Now, RotoWire, curious enough, they've got some pretty low projections for Duren. But we're looking at the PRA here. Let's open up his player card. They got him at 31.41. He has been dealing with an ankle injury. He's been out for about a week. Maybe there's a little bit of rust. Maybe that could be a little bit of a cause for concern, but I'm not too worried about it. If he's going to be playing, I expect him to be healthy and at full speed, but they have him projected for 31.41 points, rebounds, and assists. But the reason we use multiple projection models is because not all models are going to yield the same results, right? So let's check out some other projections for Jaylen Duren. For the next one, we will go over to Fantasy Labs. And Fantasy Labs has Jaylen Duren at a nice, robust 37.1 points, rebounds, and assists. So a pretty big number when you consider that his line is just 33.5 right now over on PrizePicks. So 37.1 looking like a huge projection for Jaylen Duren. The next projection for Duren, we're going to go over to shot quality. They've got him at 36.91. So even still, a very big projection for Duren. Loving what I'm seeing there. Let's see if they have a projection for him on LineStar. Nope, LineStar's not updated yet, so we can't really look at that. But I think we got enough information here to feel pretty good here about taking Jaylen Duren over 33.5 points, rebounds, and assists. So I hope this video finds you well. Those are the 3 picks that I'm looking at today. Which picks are you looking at? Obviously, I'll have more picks throughout the day as PrizePicks post them. But to get those, you got to be a part of our Dub Club. So come on in and join in the community for as little as $10 for your first month. You'll get all my picks, plays, parlays. Myself and others are sending out. I got some helpful contributors, we call them. My guy Space Jam's in there, Lito's in there, Don P's in there, and other members of the community as well who are sharing their favorite slips and trying to help the community win more together. So if that sounds interesting to you, go down to the comment section below, click that special link, get that 50% off promo code. We'll catch you on the inside for some NBA, NHL, and Monday Night Football. Peace.